Hello and welcome to another video series by Wilfy Horig, cached over on gintechie.net. I'm here doing another Blue Sun kill deck, which the astute listeners and viewers of our video series may already know that I've done one before. But to recap, this is a new deck, not the same deck, but it's similar in scope, and it was given to us by one of our patrons. So this is funded by Patreon. If you want to support us, you can do so on our Patreon. It'll be linked in the comments, or the description rather. So this is a Blue Sun kill deck, which is a bit more focused on the kill than my previous Blue Sun deck, which was split between killing and scoring. And so this deck has posted bounties instead of hostile takeovers, and a couple randomish one-ofs that contribute to the kill package. Oh, not necessarily one-ofs, but it has a little more variety in its card choices, so your opponent doesn't necessarily know what your strategy is going to be or what sort of things you're going to do. So I'll just go. I haven't actually had that much experience with this deck, I will admit, but I'll go over it sequentially. So the agenda's 3 Global Food Initiative, 3 Posted Bounty, 1 Project Atlas, 1 Government Takeover. So you might notice that the most efficient way of scoring 7 points is with Global Food Initiative, 2 Food Initiatives, and either a Posted Bounty or a Project Atlas. But because of the way the agendas are set up, your opponent needs, disregarding the Government Takeover, your opponent definitely needs to score 4 agendas, but they might even need to score 5 to win, which is quite powerful since you only have 4 agendas which are worth more than 1 point. 5 agendas if you count the Government Takeover. And so Global Food Initiative really makes these kind of decks viable, since it's an agenda which is worth a significant number of points. It puts you a third towards winning the game, a little more than a third, but your opponent only a quarter, which is quite significant. And so when you can choose when you want to go to try and score it in a remote, or when you can choose when to have it on a remote or keep it in your centrals. Either way, it's only worth 2 points to the runner. Enough has been said about this card, so I won't say too much more. Government Takeover is there to reduce your agenda density. It's a little awkward when your opponent can steal it off R&D, but that's quite unlikely. And in HQ, you can keep it safe with things like Criticism Grid, which defend against legwork and other multi-accesses, and you can recycle it with Jackson. So 3 Posted Bounty is kind of the key to the deck, because it lets you turn the ability to create a fast scoring remote early, not just into scoring 7 points, but also into enabling the kill threat, kind of like the old Supermodernism decks did, where you could score Project Atlases and Posted Bounties, or maybe just Project Atlases early, which allowed you to snowball into the Seesaw Squash kill. And so there's 1 Project Atlas as a concession to the specific number of agenda points, but the main strategy is to kill your opponent with meat damage. And so scoring 7 points isn't really on the agenda, but Posted Bounty still. So Posted Bounty and Global Food Initiative both have the thing where they're more valuable to you to score them than they are to your opponent. And that's what kind of pushes the deck's strategy. And so assets, 3 Jackson Howard obviously, 1 Private Contract is just another economy card. You don't really want to draw 2, which was something that I found was a bit troublesome in my previous Blue Sun videos, because you can recur them. Private Contracts is a little slow, so it's often not the best thing to draw when you need to speed up your game plan, but in a long drawn out game where you need efficient economy, it can be really, really strong. 1 Cerebral Overrider, 1 Shattered Remains kind of punishes your opponent for not expecting that you might have any traps, and can be really effective when on a lightly iced remote. And Snare, of course, is a really powerful card in these kind of strategies because it passively defends. You don't even need to draw it, and it defends your centrals from all sorts of pressure. So the Ice 2 Assassin, which is a card from Dart and Destiny that's seen a lot of play in these kind of decks just because Blue Sun really wants fat ice that punishes your opponent for face checking. Assassin does this quite admirably, although it is a little weak to decks with high amounts of link, which we're seeing more and more of now that Sunny is viable. 3 Curtain Wall, good to score with, a bit expensive, you can overside it. Data Pike, Spiderweb, Hive, lower cost ice that stop you from folding to Siphon early. Yanis is a little bit like a 4th Curtain Wall. It's a little influence heavy, but it does kind of the same job, and it's much more punishing to face check, which is one of the ways in which Curtain Wall can be a bit awkward, because if you try and score out of a remote and they run, that you have to res the Curtain Wall, but it's such a huge expense that it often leaves R&D and HQ open for a turn, and Yanis solves this problem. Taurus is a kind of Plascrete sniper. It's a way to kill Plascrete and re-enable the kill combo, but of course it has many other applications since lots of hardware sees play. And Wormhole is a bit less good on its own than the other cheaper ice, but also a lot harder to get through since 9 for 7 is really efficient. And so that's the ice. Operations, 3 hedge fund, the usual, 3 restructure, 3 oversight is the standard Blue Sun economy package, 1 sea source, 3 scorched earth, and 2 housekeeping. Housekeeping is a card that I haven't played too much of, but I think it's quite strong in this deck. 1, because of the low agenda density, and 2, because it really hinders your opponent's development if you play it early. Like, since when you're making a remote and trying to build a scoring remote early in the game, your opponent's being forced to play breakers to have the chance of getting into that remote. And so if you force them to play breakers on different turns of the game because they don't necessarily know what breaker that they want, then housekeeping is at its most efficient there. And the last part of the deck is Chrism Grid and Off the Grid, which forms a kind of combo where you can put the Chrism Grid on HQ and the Off the Grid on a remote, and your remote is impenetrable until they get into HQ once, trash the Chrism Grid, and then get into HQ again, and then the final step of the puzzle is for them to be able to get into the remote. So it's a kind of weirdish defensive upgrade that kind of makes your remote strong if your centrals are strong, and of course defensive upgrades are really good in general in terms of letting you score expensive agendas out of remotes. So that's the deck tech. Hopefully I didn't ramble on too much, and see you in the videos.